Okay, so I'm just going to begin by telling you what it is I'm going to cover exactly in this webinar. Okay, so first of all, what's the value of having a good profile? That's what I'll make clear to you. Why? Profile settings, it's really important. You'll know that you want to control how much information that you share about yourself. So spend some time to make sure that you're really clear about that, because these days we only want to give away as much information as we want. We have to be careful. So that's an important point. Basic stuff, your photo, how you write your name. It's really important on LinkedIn. And then this is a really important part, the headline. Your headline is the 120 characters that somebody sees first when they find you. Then people need to know exactly what you're about. What other skills have you got? Have you got any special skills? It's all about using these things like keywords. When you make a search on Google, you know about keywords in your website, and this is the same on LinkedIn. That's why you must indicate your skills, and then people will find you for the right reasons. And of course, sharing your education and what you've achieved. This is important. But possibly the most important part is when you start to write the section called About, because that's when you can start to tell people exactly who you are. And it's like writing a story, and I'll show you that later on. Okay, so what's the point? Why should we bother? Okay, well, look, quite simply, LinkedIn's used by so many people right now, and it's really an essential part of building your career, maybe getting for a new job, maybe finding your first job, or even finding a better job. It's just the biggest platform for recruitment right now. And another thing about LinkedIn, you can learn lots of new things. There are lots of online courses on LinkedIn, really good courses. And you can take these courses and then you can put this in your LinkedIn profile, in your accomplishments. And if you want to make business connections, then LinkedIn is a perfect place because you can build your contacts, you can find new business, you can look for new markets. Really important. Okay. We're talking about building an all-star LinkedIn profile. So what exactly do we mean when we're talking about an all-star thing? And really, why bother? Well, that's what I'm going to answer. When we talk about an all-star profile, then these are the things that you've got to include in your LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to show you, I can share my profile with you because then I can show you an example of what we're talking about, okay? But you can see it's quite simple. You need a photo, you need the headline because that's the first thing people see. And the list goes on. So you can see all the different things, and we're going to cover these. But look, the important point is if you complete your LinkedIn profile correctly and fully, then you're going to get more views. So if you're looking for a job or your first job, or if you're looking for business, then you want people to find you. This is what it's all about. It's being found by people who are searching. And just one thing to remember is with LinkedIn and your profile on LinkedIn, you really have to remember to revisit. It's not something that you do once, complete, and then forget about. When you've created your profile, your life is changing. You're picking up new skills, you're having new experiences, you're accomplishing new things. So you have to remember to revisit your LinkedIn profile and make sure that it's up to date. And when I talk about it being focused, that means that you're writing your profile and you're thinking about who is the person reading this. Who do you want to read this? And what do you want them to think? So, like I said, staying in control of your profile is really, really important. You need to be absolutely sure who is looking and what information you're sharing. So, I'll show you what I mean here. So, before you do anything with your LinkedIn profile, you need to make sure that you're clear about this. This is my profile here that I'm sharing with you. And what I was talking about just then was how to set your settings so that you're in control of who's looking and what information you're sharing. So I'm just going to show you, once you've built your profile, and if you go to the Me section, and then you scroll down to Settings and Privacy, and this is where on privacy setting, where you can check what you're sharing with people. Okay. And it's quite important because you probably don't want to announce to everybody when you're sharing, when you're making some changes. You don't want a message to go out to everybody in your contacts. So the best thing to do is to set this as no. Okay. Another thing to remember is that you leave a footprint on LinkedIn. What I mean is people know when you're looking at their profile. So just going back. So there you go. That's the reminder of what I've just showed you, this privacy and what not to have available. It's important to see, to protect your connections. You can spend time building a lot of connections, and those will be people who are useful for you, for your job, to find a job, to get a better job, or to find new business contacts. So you only want the people you've connected with to be able to see your list. So that's an important point, because you'll spend time building up your connections and you want to protect those. You can change it because sometimes it's useful. And if you're looking for a job, then that's a useful thing. However, you probably don't want the viewers of this profile also view. This can announce other people like you who they could check out. So that possibly isn't a good idea. Because the thing is, you don't want to advertise to everybody else, the other people, the competitors, the other people who they might choose. So that's an important point. But here is probably the most important thing, because everywhere you go online, then you leave a footprint, a trail, and that means other people can see the activity that you've been doing. So the important thing here, I would say, is to talk about, sorry, is to, when you're viewing, you may want to view in private. That means that the people who you're looking at, they don't know that you've been looking. Why is that important? The reason that that's important is because possibly you're looking at the profile of the boss or the person who's going to interview you for a job. And in that case, you probably don't want them to know that you've been looking, because on LinkedIn, when people view your profile, then you get to see that. That's the thing. And so here's the first setting where you're fully visible. And it means that when someone views your profile in this fully visible mode, then you can see exactly who's been looking at your profile. And the way to avoid that is to go in the complete private mode. So that's something useful to know. This one, private profile characteristics, it's really pointless. There's no point in selecting that at all. So I say that when you want to be seen, you just use your name and headline. But if you want to be looking at somebody without letting them know, then you go into the complete private mode. Okay, guys, so just looking at the basics, we said a photograph. So the main thing to remember here is LinkedIn is about professionalism. It's about working life. So you have to be careful which photograph you choose. It has to be a photograph that you'd be happy for someone to see who was interviewing for a job. And it needs to be a clear photo, because in LinkedIn, you don't really get a very large photo. You can only use a small photo of yourself. So make sure that it's a clear one, because you want to be recognized, you want to be remembered. So writing your name, it's just writing your name. Nothing else is needed. Definitely no emojis. Like I said, like the photograph, keep it professional. And another thing with the photograph, you need to be wearing clothes that suggest you're a serious person and that you would want to be seen at an interview. This one about your industry and location. Okay, the reason that this matters is because, again, when people are searching for you, you might have a reason why you want to set your location to where you live, because that's where you do business. But it may similarly be that you live in a different area of the country, or you might work globally or across a country. So think carefully about which location you set for this. And don't forget, you can always change it. Like anything on LinkedIn, you can go back and you can change it whenever you want to. So this is important too when you set your contact details, because these are only your email address if you include an email, and your telephone because you want to be contacted. This is only visible to the people who you contacted directly, not their connections, but just the direct first connections that you have. And it's important to think again about how much information do you want to give people. You know, birthday, that's okay. People wish you happy birthday, and that might be a good thing, because if you're trying to build your business contacts, then that's a good opportunity to reply and have a conversation with somebody. So the headline, and I'll just show you why this is important. And the best tip that I can give you about your headline, if you've got a LinkedIn account, is to go to it now and change it, because mostly people don't use this correctly, but it's so important that you get it right. And I'll show you mine in a moment because I changed it just this afternoon when I was preparing for the presentation today. You've got a limited number of characters in your headline. People talk about making those characters work hard for you. And that means that you need to use that 120 characters as best you can to attract the attention of anybody who's searching for you. And I think it's important to remember that when they do search for you, even on Google, then that's what pops up. It'll be the name and then your headline. So it follows you around everywhere you go, and it's important that you get it right. People talk about an elevator pitch, and the elevator pitch, some of you probably know, means if you are stood in an elevator, in a lift, as we say in British English, and you're rising up the floors, you've got 20 seconds, 30 seconds in that time to convince somebody about you. Why should they believe in you and what you've got to sell? Why should they listen to you? And it's a really difficult skill to compress an impression about you in 120 characters. So don't just stick with your job title and your company name. You need to put something in there that explains what you do. What does your company do? And then you can be specific. Talk about what you specialize in. And also, who is the people that you're trying to connect with? Because remember, that's the headline that comes up when somebody searches for you. And that's why it's important to refine that information. Some people put looking for new opportunities, meaning they're looking for a new job. Well, it's better to be more specific. Be more specific and tell them what kind of job, what skills have you got, what kind of job are you looking for. And again, it's not a place to put emojis. So I'll just show you my headline and then it gives you an idea what we're talking about here. So if you look to the left, you can see this is my photo that I've chosen. And also remember that it's really good idea to choose a good photo for the background. A lot of people leave it empty and it does matter. It's much, much better if you can choose a photo there. So this is where I've put my headline, my 120 words, my one opportunity to communicate to people exactly what it is that I do and that I want people to know that I do. I'm using my LinkedIn account for business. So I'm trying to speak to customers who may be students, or it may be parents who are thinking of sending their son or daughter to our school. So I'm thinking when I'm writing my profile that I'm speaking to them directly. Okay, guys. So when you're talking about your experience, because in your LinkedIn profile, there's a section that is called experience, and it's important to remember that you need details here. It's not enough just to take your curriculum and put it into LinkedIn. That won't work as well at all. So let's think about what details that you need. So again, we're talking about the two uses of LinkedIn because people are either looking for a new job or they're looking for business for their company. So it's about, again, thinking who are you writing for? Who do you want to read this? And importantly, what do they need to know about you and then your career? And then an overview is the best way to start describing what you do right now. And it's important to remember to avoid just listing your job description. That's not going to impress anybody. So look, keywords. You understand about keywords when people are searching. There are keywords that the search will throw up. And so in your description of experience, you need to have these keywords in there. And if you write your description clearly, this will naturally happen. So this is an example of a really good way to write about your experience of a job. This could be any job that you've done. It could be your first job. It could be your latest job. But the important point is that you contain in it the information that you want the reader to see. It's really important here that you have an opportunity in this section of your LinkedIn profile. You can add a link, and the link can be added to any documents or video or photos or website that you want to include that shows more information about what you achieved in your job. And if you're using LinkedIn for business, then it's a great way to drive traffic to your website by having a link to your website, to a page on your website in that section of your profile in your experience. Also, if you're working for a company or if it's your company, you can link to your company page in this section. It's really useful. Sometimes with LinkedIn, you receive people telling you congratulations on your work anniversary. I don't know, but I've never really celebrated my work anniversary, like my birthday, for example. So you can make sure that you don't need these in. The way to avoid having this congratulations on your work anniversary is to look here where you've got the date. So if this is your latest job, if you use the years and not the months, then you'll avoid people sending you these messages. So, skills and endorsements. It's good, again, to put in these skills. The skills you find, they come up as keywords. It's very easy to find the different skills. And the advice is to list 50 skills. You might think that 50 skills is a lot to find, but really the more skills you have that are relevant to you, then the more chance that you'll be found by somebody looking for somebody like you. And again, it's that thing about using keywords in your profile. And again, as with LinkedIn, always revisit and then you can upgrade. You're going to learn new things. You're going to get new skills, different skills as time goes by. And so it's really important that you revisit and update. Education. Okay, you need to complete the section on education to get this all-star status, but it's up to you really how much detail. Some people don't think that their education is so important if they're an older person and they've already got a proven track record. Whereas if you're younger and it's your first job or your second job, then your education might seem much more relevant for you. It's your choice. The important part is do complete it, don't leave it incomplete. And these days, people are using the accomplishment section. That's when you've done maybe a short course, maybe you've done an online language course or a language course, or you've done some volunteering, or you've got some certificates for other things. You may have sports or hobbies and you've got certificates and things that you've achieved. This is the perfect place to put that kind of information. It just shows much, much more about you and what you've achieved and what kind of a person you are. I'm just going to go back to the LinkedIn profile and then I can show you exactly what these sections look like on LinkedIn. So I'm just going to take you to my profile page and then you can see what I've been talking about here. Okay, so just to review, photo of me looking quite smart because this is about professional work situation. I've got a photo in the background that shows some part of my business. I've got my name, just simply my name, and then I've got my headline. This is the thing that I'm hoping people will see when they search me. In fact, that's what they'll find when they search me, and that's even if they Google me, that will come up, and that's why that's important. Then we're going to look at the About section. This is quite important, but we're going to look at that shortly. You can see that there's plenty of opportunity to put photos in about you. Photos that show who you are more than outside of your professional life. It's the things that you've done, maybe that you're proud of. You can have videos, but it's just an important part to use to make sure that people know who you are and what you do outside of work. It's really important. So here we are. I was telling you about your experience, and that's where you tell people your latest role. And you can see that's where I started 2017. I'm still in this role now. And then we have a link to the company, International House, there. I'm talking about what I do, but here I'm speaking again to possible students, possible parents of students. I may be talking to some of my study travel agent partners who advise their customers about our school. So that's who I'm thinking of when I'm writing this. I'm speaking to all those people. And this is great because I can have links to videos which illustrate much, much better what I'm talking about. Okay, guys, back to the presentation. So the about section. This is the longest section, and this is important because if you've done all the work correctly up to now, then you've attracted the attention of people who are looking. And if they search for you, then and they find you, this is a time to really start to give more information about who you are as a person and share your story. So, like I said, when you've done this properly and you've set up your profile well, you've got your nice photo, you've got your headline with the 120 characters that really tells people exactly what you do and who you're speaking to. If they're happy with that, then they click through and then they'll see your about section. And again, it's about writing to your audience, like I said. People talk about humble brag. Humble brag. So if you're humble, you don't like to tell people how good you are. But if you brag, then you're really telling people about things that are positive about you. And if brag is quite negative, it means that you're telling people so many good things about yourself, most probably they're annoyed with you. You're making them feel bad. So we talk about this humble brag to describe a good way of telling people the positive things that you've done, that you've achieved. So that means it has to be true. And that means that you have to not exaggerate the thing. So it's a real skill. However, in this section, you need to be telling people how good you are, but not too much in a way that would annoy them. So guys, these are some guidelines about this section. And about is the longest part of your LinkedIn profile. So you really have to think carefully about what you're writing. Again, who are you writing to? So people talk about the first two sentences being really, really important. And the reason for that is quite simply that when I showed you my profile just now, the only thing that shows on my about section are the first two sentences. Those are the only things that you can see. So if those two sentences are not interesting, if they don't grab your attention, then nobody's going to click the show more and read the rest of it. And look, 2,600 characters, you've got lots and lots of space to give some really interesting and important information about you. And if you don't get those first two sentences right, nobody's going to click through and you've wasted all the time that you've spent getting your profile right, that's brought them there, that's made them find you. So that's a really important point. Writing in the first person, that means you're writing in the sense of, I like to do this, I remember when. You're talking about you, the first person. And then what impact have you had? What is it about you that gives people something of value? What is it about you in your job or you and your business? That's what you need to be thinking about. What have you achieved? Anything that you've won? Have you won any prizes, any awards? Even a sporting award? What is it that you've achieved? People want to know that in here. And then your values. What's motivating for you? Like I said, this is the point in LinkedIn when people really start to understand who you are and what motivates you. We talk about what gets you out of bed in the morning, what motivates you to start the day full of energy. And that's the sort of thing that you need to be writing about here. And again, talk about what you do outside of work. That's more like a story. It's more like what we call an autobiography. It's part of your life that you want people to know about, that you think is connected to the job that you do or the business that you run. And I think this is a really good tip at the end here, to always ask a friend or a teacher or a colleague to read it through before you publish, because it's always good to get a second opinion. And I think it's not always an easy thing to do, to write about yourself. But there we go.